Well, just 4 games to go, and it looks like some things may be close to being decided this weekend. We've got a double match week across Easter, as it's a Good Friday and Easter Monday double header. We start today with our Good Friday predictions for match week 43, and as always, we're going to preview and predict the 12 matches. I'll encourage you to do exactly the same in the comments below. If you beat or match my overall score, as everyone did last week, which we'll get to in a minute, you will get a shout out on Saturday night when we return to look ahead to match week 44. But will some of these battles at the top for the playoffs and for relegation be decided by then? Let's go and find out, because before we go and move into match week 43, we've got to have a quick recap, unfortunately for me, of match week 42, where for the second successive match week, I had a disaster. Got a little bit arrogant after about 20 good match weeks in a row, said I needed to go lower scoring and then didn't, and as a result, I was punished. I got 2 points for the first 2 games of the match week, Burnley and Leeds, the top 2, the promotion favourites, both edging victories. And then after that, it was an unmitigated disaster with a lot of late goals costing me a couple of points. But ultimately, I've got very little to complain about there. Lesson of the day, don't go for heart over head. It doesn't pay off, does it, Luton Town? So just 2 points for me, and it was a very low scoring match week overall. Nobody scored more than 8 points, except for one runaway leader who's going to get a special shout out. Level on 2 points with me first though was Nigel, a tough week for both of us. One above on 3 was Chris, Mike, Brian and Lee. Lee only actually predicted one game as a West Brom fan, got the score right. That's all you needed to do to beat me this week, so well done. Ojo and Etienne up on 5, Bobby on 6, Stephen Mitchell on 7, and then 4 of you joined in second place on 8 points. Very solid efforts given some of the score lines. Mello, Peter, Marco and Gordon, all of you take joint second place. But Mick Downey, a fairly regular player in recent weeks, has stormed past the field and made us all look silly. 3 perfect scores, 3 other correct outcomes, 12 points and a completely dominant matchday win. Well done to you, Mick. You win match week 42. But now, the hard job is to replicate it. We move on to Good Friday and match week 43. 12 games being played across one whole day. And after the first of them, I might already be done with Championship football for the day, because it's Derby County versus Luton Town, and this game is absolutely massive at the bottom. 23rd v 21st, but if Luton win, they can go level on points with Derby. There's not much evidence to suggest that's going to happen though. A 1-0 defeat at home to Blackburn Rovers for Luton, against 10 men for the last half an hour as well. Loads of shots, loads of corners, lots of pressure, but didn't really look like scoring, and it's been a problem from open play all season for Luton. Blackburn nicked a smash and grab, one of the most out of form teams in the division, and they were able to hold on relatively comfortably in the end. Only one big strike of the woodwork to scare. It's a shame because Luton had been 5 unbeaten prior to that, a couple of sneaky away victories and then 3 draws, but the problem at the moment, there's no goals in the team. While they've had to try and be a bit more assured defensively and solidify themselves, they're now losing players. Doughty looks like he's out for the season. Adebayo's out for the season. And they're just not quite there. So I can't see anything other than a relegation now, if I'm being honest. And this is the last chance Saloon to avoid it. Derby themselves have only lost 1 of the last 7. They won 4 in a row at that defeat at Swansea, but since then have bounced back pretty well. A draw against Burnley, and then a 2-2 draw at Pompey last weekend. It was a frustrating one for them, of course, to concede in stoppage time, but away from home, probably would have taken a point at the start. Again, didn't have most of the chances, but probably had the best chances of the game on the counter. And at home, they've been a very different proposition since John Eustace came in. Their last 3 games, all clean sheets against Burnley, Preston and Coventry. All far more potent threats than our Luton Town team. So, for me, I can't see anything other than a Derby win and clean sheet. I know Luton haven't been conceding many recently, but my thought is, if Luton are 1 down with 15 to go, they're not going to be able to sit back. They've got a far worse goal difference than anyone outside the bottom 3. If they go a goal down, which I think they will, they'll have to chase it late on, and I think it might cost them a second. So I'm going to go for Derby County to win this game, at home to Luton by 2-0. As we move on to the 3 p.m. kickoffs and the side that Luton were beaten by last weekend, it is Blackburn Rovers versus Millwall. What a result for Millwall, by the way. Back within 3 points of the playoffs, a big win at home to Middlesbrough, That's Borough and Sheffield United, back-to-back 1-0s, fantastic results. We said that Alex Neil's got to do a lot of work in the summer to create a more potent attacking side for Millwall, but they've only let in 41 goals, and when you're winning games 1-0, you've always got a chance. They're giving up possession. We know how they're going to play, but in this game, they had the best chances. They nicked one, and they were so solid defensively, and they can always be trusted with a 1-0 lead. So I think this is a pretty good sign for Millwall. There is still a chance. It's not beyond the reckoning that they could sneak in. Neil Harris built a solid base, and Alex Neil is doing a very good job with them. So Millwall back to sort of where they were 2 years ago under Gary Rowett, battling up for the top six. For Blackburn, as we mentioned, ended that disastrous championship run with a 1-0 win at Luton. Of course, the red card didn't help. Of course, they had one or two chances to defend at the end, but generally, it was a good away display. They sat back, they nicked one on the counter. They won the game. You can't ask for much more. Not a lot for them to play for now. The gap is 7 to the playoffs. Probably too much with 4 to go. And I think Millwall are going to be tough to beat. If they can nick one, I think they'll be able to defend the lead. So Blackburn, they want space in behind. Luton were willing to give it to them. I don't think Millwall will be so forgiving. I'm going to go for the visitors to win this. I'm staying lower scoring this week. I'm going 1-0 for Millwall. Let's move to a battle at the top, and it's 5th v 4th as Bristol City host Sunderland. Bristol City maybe slightly frustrated with a 1-1 draw at QPR, but came back from behind early on. And again, despite offering very little, they're not actually playing that well at the moment. They're really shoring things up, and they're not conceding many goals, which has so often been the accusation of this side. Had 60% of the possession, but created very little with it. And QPR probably did have the best chances of the game, but to be fair, Bristol City have been grinding out results for a lot of this season, and Liam Manning is only maybe a couple of results from taking them into that top 6. Whether or not they can do that against the Sunderland side that are rotating and thinking about the playoffs themselves, they were defeated 1-0 at home to Swansea. It was a frustrating day. It was a disappointing game. Lots of the ball, again, not a huge amount created with it. Rotation has been the key, keeping people fit, looking ahead to the playoff campaign coming up. They've known they're going to be there for some time, but you've also got to go in form, so they're going to need to start hitting that soon. The positives, they've only conceded 1 in their last 4. The negatives, 2 blanks in a row, only scored 3 in their last 6, and that's always been our question mark of Sunderland this year. Will they be able to do it against a Bristol City side that need that result, that are very hard to beat themselves? I mean, Bristol City, 16 wins, 16 draws. The next most draws of those playoff contenders are Sunderland with 13. There's a chance it's going to be a 1-1 here, but I'm going to stick my neck on the line and go for an extra goal. All of Bristol City's last 3 home games have been 2-1. I'm going to go for the same again at Ashton Gate, 2-1 to the hosts. As we move on to another huge game in that battle for the playoffs, this one, 6th v 7th, it is Coventry City versus West Bromwich Albion. West Brom stopped the rot of 3 in a row with a crucial win at home to Watford. A really important result, and they hung on in the end after conceding with 15 to go. They did have the better chances in the game. Again, gave up possession, but had the best chances of the match on the counter. It feels like that's how every championship game seems to go at the minute. So for West Brom, a crucial win gets them back within 3. And if they can win this one with their superior goal difference, they will be back in the top 6 come the end of Friday night. For Coventry, it was frustration against Hull, conceded that late equaliser. They'd had so many more of the chances, but again, weren't able to put the game to bed. They've not been brilliant on the road throughout, to be fair, and they have now started to struggle to pick up points consistently. On the road now, that's only 1 point in their last 3 games, including 2 against sides battling at the bottom. At home, though, it's been very different. Yes, narrowly beaten by Burnley, but very comprehensive with clean sheets against Sunderland, and then a bit narrower against Pompey, but the same outcome. This game's really hard to call. West Brom, I think, will be back in form in time. Coventry just starting to show some frailties now. I'm going to have to sit on the fence for this one. It could easily go 1-0 either way. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1 goal apiece in a big battle for the top 6. Then we move on to another side in that mix as well as a side who are back in the battle for survival. It is Middlesbrough versus Plymouth Argyle. Let's talk about Plymouth, who stunned Sheffield United with a late goal and a late turnaround, in fact, at Home Park at the weekend. Didn't create an awful lot. It wasn't a brilliant game, actually. It was a pretty poor match to watch. However, they did what they needed to do with 30% of the ball. Another pattern of the Championship. Puts them level on points with Luton, just 3 from safety. Effectively 4 given their wretched goal difference. And we know their away form's awful. We know their running's awful. But they could end up playing teams at the right time. You don't know. Middlesbrough is certainly not a case of that. Back-to-back 1-0 defeats after a solid run leaves them 3 points away from the playoffs. Again, Borough just so inconsistent in front of goal. They'll score a couple 2 games in a row. Then they'll produce a couple of blanks. And against Millwall, in truth, they had a few chances, but Millwall had the best ones of the game. It was possession without creating bundles of great opportunities. But they've got to bounce back at home to Plymouth. Plymouth are so poor on the road. They were battered at Swansea. They clung on for a 0-0 at Watford and got a miracle at Pompey. But over the course of the season, they've been awful away from home park. So I'm going to have to go for Middlesbrough to win this. I can't bank on them to score loads of goals. I'm going to go for a comfortable home win by 2-0 for Borough. As we approach the halfway point with another side in that relegation mix on the road, Norwich City host Portsmouth, who probably need one more result. They'll be very pleased in the circumstances to have got the draw against Derby with that 91st minute equaliser. Atkinson getting both will have been an unlikely hero in that game. However, they did give up the best chances in that match despite having a lot of the ball. But it's another point, and when I look at those sides in the bottom 3, it might only be 1 or 2 points from safety now. I've said all along, I think 48 is the magic number. So as long as Rob Atkinson can stop scoring them in the wrong end and just score in the right this time, they might be okay. As they go to a Norwich side, nothing to play for. They've had 3 tough games in a row, losing to Plymouth, then playing 2 of the top 4. It's been a tough finish to the season for them. It's been a nothing campaign, and for the improvement to style of football and whatever's been talked about, they're not scoring many goals at the moment, 4 in the last 5, and they're not getting the maximum out of that squad, which, to be fair, David Wagner was doing despite not playing his usual preferred style of play. So 2 teams not in the best of form. Pompey looking to stumble over the line. Norwich looking to find a win to finish on a high. I'm going to have to go, I think, for the Championship's favourite scoreline. Pompey are poor on the road. I was tempted by Norwich, but I'm going to go for 1 goal apiece. Into the second half, and this is one of those games, I think, almost officially with nothing to play for. It is Preston versus QPR. We won't spend long on it because it's 15th v 16th. Both sides 7 and 8 clear of the relegation zone now, respectively. Preston, a 2-1 defeat at Leeds, a spirited effort late on, but let's be honest, it was a difficult day at the office where they were outplayed for the most part. Paul Heckingbottom knows what he's got to do next year, and Preston just aren't good enough to compete with those sides at the minute. For QPR, 5 points in 3 games has been a welcome relief after a wretched run. They did get that draw against Bristol City in a game where, to be fair, again, they probably had the best chances. We've been saying it since prior to the January window. They're a striker away, and they still remain a striker away. They've just got to make sure they invest in the summer in the right area and find someone who can score them goals at this level. I don't think this is going to be a thrilling game by any means, but QPR at the moment creating more of the chances. Preston, the slightly more leaky defence and the slightly more hit squad. So with their depleted numbers at the minute, I'm going to go for QPR in an ugly game by 1-0. As we move on to a big game at the bottom, or are they almost safe now? It is Stoke City versus Sheffield Wednesday. Wednesday, nothing to play for, out of form. Obviously, it's all gone wrong since the wages stopped being paid after the international break. Only 2 points in the last 5 matches. Blew the lead at Blackburn, then lost at home to Oxford United. It's been a really frustrating month or so. I think it's all but known that Danny Rowe is probably going to leave the club. And while they didn't play that badly, they dominated the ball. They did create lots of opportunities, but they didn't create great ones. And in the end, a draw probably would have been a fair result. But Sheffield Wednesday have been giving up goals this year. It's their Achilles heel, 64 conceded, and another one against Oxford gives them a priceless win. For Stoke, also an important win. 1-0 away at Cardiff to put the gap to 5 points and 4 places between the two. A late own goal enough to do it. But in fairness, it was a game that probably could have petered out into a draw. Both sides had a couple of good opportunities, but there was little other quality to the match. And Stoke in the end managed to find a way to nick it, which after conceding a lot of late goals to cost them points in recent weeks, they'll probably find as a mighty relief. It's 4 unbeaten, starting to see Mark Robins get this side over the line, and they're going to need to rebuild this summer and build confidence in a new season and a new manager. For Stoke, though, I think the job is almost done. And in this game, I think they'll complete it because Sheffield Wednesday just don't look like picking up points at the minute. And Stoke will take advantage of their poor defensive form with a 2-1 win to secure safety. Then we move on to another big game at the bottom and a side that picked up a priceless point on Monday night. It is Swansea City versus Hull City, who late on against Coventry got that point to move 3 clear, effectively 4, given the magnitude of the goal difference swing from Cardiff City in 22nd. It was a crucial result for them in a game where they didn't create an awful lot. I mean, I said it when I went to watch the Luton game there. They've got good set-piece delivery. They're not the worst defensively. They're more organised than they were under Tim Walter. They're doing enough in a very poor bottom end of the Championship. I still think they are the one side outside the relegation zone that have a chance of being caught. But looking at my team, Luton, looking at Plymouth's away form and Cardiff's lack of inspiration, I don't think they're going to be in trouble for it. So I think this is going to be the one where they're going to try and pick up that result to secure safety. And as we mentioned, 3 more points is probably enough. For Swansea, though, 3 wins in a row, including a big win at Sunderland, and Alan Sheehan, in his audition, has taken Swansea up to the top half, just 9 points off the playoffs, very comfortably safe, looking a lot more assured at the back. And in a game where, to be fair, they gave up a lot of the ball, not the way they would have wanted to play. They had to play on the counter a lot. They didn't give up many great chances and created 1 or 2 on the break. It was a really good away day. Not the most thrilling to watch, but 3 wins in a row, 3 clean sheets. And now Swansea City look up the division, and if they can win this one again, it could well be as high as 10th come the end of the match week, which would be incredible. I do think this is going to be a slightly more difficult game because Hull now probably looking over their shoulder in the position and thinking, if we can draw every game, we'll be all right. And Ruben Sellers is a cautious manager in his setup. They've conceded far less than the rest of that, well, bottom 8 in the end. And I think they're going to go for the same approach here. So as much as I was tempted to go for a 0-0, I think there will be a couple of goals in this one. And for the third and final time in this match week, I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1 goal apiece. A result that is probably pretty handy for both. And the final 3 p.m. kickoff is a big one at the top of the table because mid-table Watford hosts second place Burnley. Watford probably just out of that battle now after a 2-1 defeat against West Brom. They were chasing the playoffs and they've looked better generally this season, but not quite enough of a consistent goal threat. And while they had more of the ball and more shots officially against West Brom, there's no doubt that the hosts had the better chances in that game and they deserve to lose it. But we know that Watford's away form has been awful all year. At home, they've still been picking up results. They haven't conceded in their last 3 at home, albeit they were all against sides in the bottom half at the time. I know Swansea are up to 12th now, but I just think at home they're a very different proposition. For Burnley, a big win against Norwich City, a 2-1 victory as they conceded again, but they survived that late scare. They managed to get over the line in what was a very poor performance in the end. It was a pretty even game. A draw may have been a fair result, but they got that early 2-goal lead and then just saw it out, which has been the story of Burnley's season. They're a brilliant front runner. They don't concede many. However, they're not that thrilling to watch. I don't hold up much hope for them in the Premier League should they get there, but the unbeaten run continues. They've got one of the best Championship defensive records we've ever seen, and I think that's going to continue in this game. Watford don't really score goals with regularity unless they've got space on the break to get in behind. Burnley are too organised to afford that. It's just whether they produce a moment of magic. They drew a blank away last time at Derby. They've had a couple of frustrating days. And given what's happening elsewhere, you never know. A draw might be enough. I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw here, just because Burnley have done it so often on the road this year. And I don't really trust Watford to score many. So 0-0 seems the safest score. The penultimate game is the 5:30 kickoff, and you could argue this is a must-win for both sides. It is Sheffield United in third against third bottom in Cardiff City. Sheffield United, who saw this coming? We mention it every year in these predictions. It's never those games against the top sides. Everyone was talking about Burnley, Sheffield United on Easter Monday. It's always the surprise games. We said it with Leeds 4-0 at QPR last year. I think Leicester lost at Plymouth or they lost at Bristol City. They lost a couple of weird games on the road. Sheffield United have lost against Oxford, Millwall, Plymouth in succession. And now they are 5 points adrift of Burnley and Leeds and must win at home to a Cardiff side who are scrapping for their lives. They lost late on 1-0 against Stoke, an own goal in a game that was, again, even, lacking in quality for large parts, but a draw would have helped them out, and they didn't get it. They are 3 in succession prior to that, had been a 4-game unbeaten run, but they've just not looked inspiring for a while. They've taken cheaper options on the management front and the squad since Errol Balut left, and unfortunately, I kind of think unless Hull produce a stinker, they're destined to their fate. This is, on paper, a very tough game for them, but Sheffield United are in a bit of a rot. They're not producing many goals. I cannot see this being a high quality or high scoring game. The only way, I guess, is if Sheffield United score early, because a bit like I mentioned with Luton, and a bit like I mentioned with Plymouth, Cardiff are going to have to come out if they're 1-0 down late on. I'm going to go for Sheffield United to win this. I think it's going to be a really poor game on the telly. I'm going to go for 1-0 at Bramall Lane, but ultimately, that's all they need to do at the minute, is pick up 3 points. And if they can do that, all eyes will then be on the final game at 8 p.m. It is Oxford United versus table toppers Leeds United, both of them picking up pivotal wins last week. Oxford got that 3 points at Sheffield Wednesday. Again, an away from home smash and grab. A draw probably would have been a fair result, but they nicked it. They did create a bit more than they normally do on the road, but it was another game where they could have conceded in truth. However, a really good away win. 48 points, I think, will be enough. They may just want one more point at home if they can get it. This is going to be a very tough game to pick it up, though. Gary Rowett's done an excellent job, but Leeds United, they're back. It wasn't a brilliant performance against Preston or against Middlesbrough, but to be honest, they're still dominating the games. They're creating more of the chances. Against Preston, a concern will be they should have scored 3 or 4. And if they do go up Leeds, they have got to gamble on a real top-level striker, because that's going to be the difference maker. They're still unbeaten in ages. They look far more solid at the back with Carl Darlow in goal. And do you know what? I think they're going to finish with a flourish here. I think the timing has worked out for Leeds, because Oxford United have basically secured their safety there. I think they'll be approaching on the beach. We saw that they were poor at home to QPR. Leeds United, if they have a game where they take their chances, they will blow someone away. It's just whether they have that confidence. If Burnley drop points a bit earlier on in the day, if Sheffield United don't win, it could be the relief they need. It could be a very different game if both of those sides win and win convincingly earlier in the match day. But given the scores I've gone for, I'm then going to go for Leeds United to really put the hammer down, to dominate the game, but to actually take their chances on the break. And I'm going to go bold and big here. Let's finish in style. I'm going for Leeds United by 4-0. But Oxford United can relax. They've got the job done now. So with that out of the way, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for in match week 43. In the opening game, my side Luton Town are going to be plunged into trouble. In fact, based on what I've gone for, the bottom 3 are going to get cut further adrift. All of them losing away from home without scoring. And I've gone for Derby and Hull and Portsmouth to all pick up points, as well as a Stoke win. I've also gone for Leeds and Sheffield United to win, but Burnley to drop points in a 0-0 at Watford. So it could be a decisive day in both ends of the championship table, but particularly for my side in a relegation battle. Do you agree or disagree? Those are just my score predictions for match week 43. Let's hope they're a little bit better than the last set. If you want to have your opinion, chuck your score predictions down in the comments. If you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out when we return on Saturday to look ahead to a full Easter Monday edition. Come and watch those with us, get involved with them too. But for now, if you did enjoy this one, do chuck a thumbs up, subscribe, turn that notification bell on and all that good stuff. And we will be back on Saturday evening to look ahead to Easter Monday, where hopefully my predictions will have been awful again and Luton will be edging closer to safety. We can only hope. Fingers crossed.